Welcome to Bridging the Gap. I'm your host, Bria Baker. In this episode, we're celebrating Women's History Month with some of the brilliant creatives behind Disney and Pixar's Turning Red. We're talking about the importance of coming-of-age stories that center around teenage girls.
I've seen many coming-of-age stories, but I never really resonated with them.
It is the most, I think, impactful period of time. It's the time you viscerally remember.
We're like redefining what the universal story is.
When you don't do that, you suddenly make people feel like you don't belong as the lead.
I am so excited to be joined by the creatives from Turning Red, Domee Shi, Lindsey Collins, Rosalie Chiang, and Maitreyi Ramakrishnan. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Super happy to be here.
So this episode is all about coming-of-age stories, and I would love for each of you to just share with us what has it felt like to be a part of something so dynamic, so fresh, so honestly unprecedented.
I'm so lucky to be able to collaborate with hundreds and hundreds of artists, animators, technicians, really, really smart people to bring the movie to life. The movie was inspired by my own life growing up as a Chinese-Canadian girl in Toronto, Canada, and just really wanted to share that experience of a girl going through big hormonal and physical changes.
And you nailed it, let me just say.
Thank you so much.
For me, it was like from the very beginning, this felt different as a film. Not only obviously because of the subject matter, but just the tone and the voice and kind of the boldness of it. It just was kind of unapologetic out of the gate. And I think that's kind of Domee, really. Yeah. She's kind of unapologetic out of the gate too. And I think that just kind of carried through on the film. And it's also the first time we had a full female leadership team on a film at Pixar.
I'm just loving that it's all women sitting here having this conversation. You two, hello, got to voice two of the best characters. Please tell us a little bit more about that and just what it meant for y'all to get to bring those characters to life.
My voice, Maylin Lee. First Asian lead in a Pixar movie.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And she's an incredible character to voice. I mean, she's so energetic, she's confident, but at the same time, she's an emotional mess. She's imperfect in all of the best ways.
Yeah. So real.
Absolutely, yeah.
I voiced Priya, who is awesome. Turning Red as a whole is just so amazing. Being a part of an animated film that is so overwhelmingly Canadian in the best way possible.
Serious Canadian pride.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I see an animated Pixar $5 bill. It's blue.
Blue money.
Oh yeah, we got the color money. Yeah, I'm just so overwhelmed with just gratitude and just, pride for our movie that we made.
When I was voicing May, the most important thing was to make her an authentic person. Reading the script, I realized she's quite similar to me. I was kind of bringing my own personal experiences while voicing her. And many of the scenes are quite similar to times in my real life. That really helped me bring out the realness in her. I want other girls to watch this movie and realize that it's going to be a completely imperfect journey. I went through many dark times, and they're probably going to go through many dark times of their own. It's going to be really tough, but keep on going. It'll be okay.
Why is it so important to show young, multidimensional female leads to these young audiences?
It was super important because there just isn't a lot of stories in mainstream media that depict different kinds of women and girls on screen. And when I first pitched this movie to Pixar in 2017, I pitched 3 ideas, but all of them were coming-of-age girl stories because this was just a theme that I really was passionate about exploring. I really wanted to give to girls like something that can help guide them through the crazy ups and downs of adolescence. And girls are pretty beautiful, strong, but they're also messy. They make mistakes. They're passionate. They're sweaty. They are just, multifaceted, wonderful beings that deserve full, rich stories about them.
I love that.
Well, what's funny to me is that being 13 is always a time when all of us, even filmmakers, we talk about it all the time. We're like, yeah, we don't really like to talk about life at 13. Like, even photos, you're like, I don't want to bring in my photo from when I'm 13, thank you. But in the weird way, it is the most, I think, impactful period of time. It's a time you viscerally remember. It really allowed us to go in there and be like, all right, why is it uncomfortable? Why is this a moment in time that is actually really does shape you as you move forward? And then how do we talk about it in a positive way, really about like what are the things that shape you during that period of time? Like your friends. If you have this amazing group of friends, it makes all the difference when you're 13 years old, and like having a relationship with your mom and all of those things that they're never clean or easy. It's because it's such a tumultuous and uncomfortable time. Partially was the reason you were like, oh yeah, man, let's talk about that time.
Okay, so now with you two, do you remember, I mean, I know you're in some ways still growing up, but like, do you remember seeing a moment where you resonated with a character like that?
I mean, I've seen many coming of age stories, but I never really resonated with them. Like, I could kind of see myself, but not really. I really resonated with May because she wants to be herself, but then at the same time, she loves her family so much, and she just wants to make them proud. I had a similar journey with that, especially since I'm acting, and it's not a typical Asian job that an Asian would take. I was very fortunate that my family was very supportive of my acting career.
It was hard for me to like find a character that I resonated with because of the visual experience. And that's, I guess, a big reason why I liked animation a lot as a child, because there were more possibilities. And now it's awesome that Turning Red is here because no like young South Asian girl is gonna have that situation where they can't. You know, they can see Priya, right? And it's growing in that way that more people can see themselves.
And I think what you both touched on is that it's not just about the fact that Mei Lin is such an authentic and raw representation of a young woman coming of age, but specifically a young Asian woman coming of age. And I think that's really powerful. Myself as a Black woman, I can see myself in these characters, but I can also acknowledge there is something very distinct about their experience and their coming of age that is different from me.
Playing Priya is so amazing because she's up in the front and she's taking up her own space with all of the emotions that she goes through. And she looks like me, definitely had like the bushy hair when I was in middle school, obviously nose ring, seeing characters like that totally helped me feel seen. It's amazing to see the stories that are coming out nowadays that young girls can look to and relate to and just get so excited over, because that is such a magical feeling.
We talked about why authentic portrayals of women is important, but specifically around Asian women being represented in media, what are the consequences of not having that representation?
Everyone's stories are different, whether you're the same race or not. It's just a nice idea to show people who aren't Asian, like, this is somewhat how it's like, without the turning into a red panda. Exactly.
Wait, that's not part of your life? You're not...
Yeah, it was very close.
The things that, you know, Mei Lin goes through isn't so different to what I go through. And, you know, I'm South Asian, right? I'm Tamil Canadian, but I can relate. So I'm not East Asian or Chinese, right? There is that like, oh wait, we're not so different, you and I.
It's like we're like redefining what the universal story is or looks like.
What the consequences can be of when we don't do that is you suddenly make people feel like you don't belong as the lead. You suddenly make people feel like, I'm sorry, but your life is the sidekick to your white friend that you have at school. Because if that's the only thing you're seeing, that's what you're gonna feel, especially as a young, impressionable kid, right? South Asian girls can look at Priya and say, yeah, she looks like me. But you know what? I actually am more of a Mei Lin. Or maybe any of the characters in the friend group, which I think is awesome because that friend group looks like my friend group growing up.
I love it.
Yeah, like talking just about that. Important female friendships where they're not at each other, but just truly good homies.
Yeah, good homies.
Good homies.
We need more good homie stories.
Totally.
Exactly.
What about you, Domee?
The movies that I watched growing up about teenagers, I did not identify with at all. They all lived in huge houses. They were dating, they were going, you know, like doing crazy things. And I was just at home, not allowed to do anything except like study or like play computer games and stuff. And I just wanted to show like that aspect of adolescence that I think a lot of immigrant kids, Asian kids kind of go through. And also, like, I don't feel like the West has done a very good job of portraying Asian culture in the media. Like, sometimes you'll like throw on an old TV show or movie, then it'll just like
the
do
cringe.
some weird like mishmash of Japanese, Chinese, like Pan-Asian kind of a character or like a place or setting. They could have just asked literally anybody off of the street, like, hey, is this Chinese or Japanese? But like the minimum effort. That's why I feel so proud of this movie, because Rona Liu, our production designer, is Chinese American, and she basically put it upon herself to like do as much research as possible into May's family, their Taishanese, like what kind of food would they cook at home, what kind of objects and props are in the house, what is the dialect of the people who live in Chinatown. Like we did our best to try to like make sure that the imagery that we were showing was authentic, but in a cool way that we're bringing the audience into this world and not totally made up, like you just mishmashed a bunch of stuff together.
Yeah, like close enough.
Yeah.
So Lindsey, we've talked a little bit about, there's so much about May Lin's experiences that are just very universal, but I'd love for you to like pick into that a little bit more. What does make her as a character so relatable?
I'll just say the general comment, at Pixar, it's like the more specific the character, the more specific the story, the more relatable, because it taps into a truth of humanity, right? Like, or experience. And so that said, I would say that that May Lin is, in some ways, she's either aspirational, and I say that as a mom, where I always loved that she was not broken at the beginning. And I think, again, that's kind of a story norm that we get, which is like, okay, present your characters as broken and then fix them by the end. And she just wasn't. And that was very intentional on your part, that you're like, no, I want her to be confident and goofy and funny and really comfortable in her life. Like, she likes it. That is so real to kids kind of right before puberty, frankly, is they have that kind of like, they're old enough to kind of be confident and funny and charming, and they haven't really hit that big insecurity yet.
Yeah.
It's so rare to have and so hard to protect as you go through teenage years. And I do think it was, universal. I mean, the fact that we could go to a bunch of male animators often who were, 30 and go like, okay, channel your inner 13-year-old, no problem. So there was something that everybody just loved about her as a character that either made them want to portray her like on the screen, protect her from what was about to happen,
I'm gonna protect her at all costs.
And then root for her as she goes through it. She just kind of engenders that sort of support, I think, no matter who you are as an audience.
Just like May Lin in the movie, I'm growing and learning every single day. I definitely came of age making Turning Red. I got a better understanding of myself and especially my relationship with my mother. I went into making this movie 4 years ago with these memories of, my mom embarrassing me, doting on me, putting a lot of pressure on me. But I think in making the movie and kind of diving deeper into the character of Ming, May's mother, I just learned like where that doting overprotectiveness came from. Like my mom was an immigrant who came to a new country, barely spoke the language, and just wanted like a good life for her daughter, for me. And that kind of manifested in pressure. But all of that came from love. So I think that's the main thing that I learned making this movie.
So Domee and Rosalie, specifically when it comes to this East Asian mother-daughter perspective, what was so important for y'all to make sure was coming through in that relationship so that we're not totally demonizing anyone in the relationship, but where you really walk away understanding them?
It was important for us when we first tackled this story to make sure that we weren't depicting a stereotypical tiger mom daughter dynamic, but that saying comes from somewhere, and you can talk to so many immigrant East Asian kids about their experiences with their moms, and there's something in there that I wanted to get into I wanted to get to the bottom of with this movie. But with May and her mom, right from the beginning, it was important for us to depict them in like a very specific way. Like May is not the typical protagonist who has a mom who's just like pressuring her on her shoulders. Like she genuinely loves her mom. They are great together. They're like peas in a pod. They love doing temple chores together, and you can see how much she cares about her family. But she's also growing up and being pulled into this new world that is like pulling her away from her mom. Like her friends, boys, Town, all kinds of strange new feelings. That's something that she can't help but start to be drawn to. And the story is about this girl that's like genuinely caught in the middle and this like struggle about who do I honor, how do I become a person that can, still be myself, but still be a good person for my family. I think that was important for us to try to explore in this movie. And I think that's the specificity that I think is missing a lot from more maybe stereotypical stories with a similar parent-child dynamic. And then, as you watch the movie, you kind of like get to see where May's mom is coming from, like her background, her relationship with her mother, and see like there's this whole intergenerational aspect of it too. That,
Chef's kiss. It was so beautiful.
yeah, that it's deeper than just the surface level tiger mom and daughter story. And we try to go deeper with the movie.
I think the stereotype tiger mom, it doesn't come from nowhere. I mean, there are people like that, but I think what's important to understand is the intention behind it.
Yeah.
She genuinely just wants the best for her daughter, even if it doesn't necessarily align with what May thinks is best. Ming understands that May is learning to be herself and learning who she is.
Maitreyi, what moments of Turning Red most reminded you of your mother?
When Maylin's mom is like, where does she get this attitude from? Where does she get this? And it's like,
You.
well, my mom loves to constantly be in denial of us being similar. I know she knows that we are.
Yeah.
We very much so are. But whenever someone's like, yeah, your daughter's very much like you in personality, she's like, no, she's a work in progress. Work in progress. So I do see that. But that, mother-daughter relationship is so nice. It's such love. And like you said it perfectly. It's just the best of intentions. Like Asian moms will do anything for their children.
Absolutely.
That's their first priority. My mom will always say, like, her children, my brother and I, are her first priority. Actually, dog first. Then her children.
Well, that is one of her children.
Right. Yeah, my bad. See, yeah, you get it. But yeah, there's a lot of really, really great moments.
And Lindsey, you're the only mom on the couch, so
I really hope you guys call my kids after this and tell them exactly that. Because I was like, look, it is coming from love. You guys, yes.
you just answered the question I was going to ask you. I was like, if they're watching this and they're getting their one moral, like, what do you hope they take away from it?
As a parent, you're always like, be patient with me. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like I kept saying. Well, and I'll just say, like, during this whole production, like, we're at home, right? So the mayhem behind, was not hidden. Like, there was no.
I saw it.
You saw it. I know. I think you were. I was like constantly like stop it. Stop yelling at each other. And everybody's like, we can hear you. Like, we just heard that. And I was like, oh, great. Okay. Hopefully it makes you like me more, right?
It was good research.
It was good research. Yeah, she was like, wow, that was amazing.
Take
what
notes.
just happened there,
Write that in.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like I was always the voice of like, Ming's just trying as hard as she can, you guys.
You provide a very valuable perspective.
One of the most important things in May's life in the movie, and it was really important for us as filmmakers, was to surround her with a group of friends that kind of represented the very best type of friendship. Equally important was that we wanted her friends to each feel distinct, that they kind of each brought something different to the friendship. I mean, you have Miriam, who's like the one who's kind of encouraging her to kind of reach outside her comfort zone, to be a little bit rebellious. And you had Priya, who was always there to lend an like even keel, really kind of solid foundation. And then you had Abby, who's like a little fireball, and she's like the muscle of the group. Like, she will get into a fight to defend you even if you're not sure why you're mad. And I think for my kids, as a parent, when you can't be there all the time, you're just hoping that they have those kinds of people around them that are giving them that kind of confidence and support.
So Domee, Rosalie, and Maitreyi, how are y'all reclaiming API narratives that have been misrepresented by storytellers who are honestly just not a part of your community?
I mean, we're hopefully doing it with this movie. I mean, we are doing it with this movie. Yes. But when I first got the opportunity to direct Turning Red, it was important for me to make sure that I wasn't the only Asian person in a creative leadership role, because it couldn't all fall on me, because I can only represent one very narrow perspective. So the first thing I did was like look for writers, look for artists, look for animators, just to make sure that there were people in every department that could speak to that point of view and that experience. Just so like there's just at least one person in every room who can be like, point
of checks and balances.
Checks and balances, but also to provide like cool ideas that, we all have blind spots. It's huge and it's so important, and we should keep doing it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I totally feel you on like, just we only have our one story. We've only lived our one life, right? And for me, like, I do feel that pressure of that perfectionism over myself. I put that on myself to say, like, you need to represent everyone well. And that pressure got so overwhelming, and I was like, wait, the characters that I play can't possibly represent everyone. Because it's just the one story of, you know, one person's life. And I was like, oh, that also applies to myself. The person behind the character can't represent everyone either. The only thing I can hope for is that we allow, you know, and keep holding the door open for more people to come through so that their life story is told and continue saying stories.
And what messages do you want to send to those next generations of girls and women through your stories?
Well, like Maitreyi said, no two stories are the same. I mean, we're all so different. We can hold the door open for more Asians to tell their own story. And I think, obviously, white people, they've had many different stories and many different perspectives, and they've had kind of this well-rounded...
They got a nice buffet to choose from.
Yeah.
They got a nice buffet. We want the buffet too.
And I think we're starting to do that. And I think even if your story's different, it doesn't make it wrong. No matter what race, culture, gender, we're all not perfect, and that's okay.
Yes to that.
And a good laugh too.
Right, exactly. Because it's very
Everything
important.
Rosalie said, and then like laugh about it because why not? Life's short.
Exactly.
So Lindsey, what about you? What messages do you hope to send to this next generation of women who are watching your stories?
I hope that they can see kind of that the experience is varied, right? That there are different experiences out there. I mean, both of what you guys have said, but also that there's actually power in the individual experience. Like it's like there is real, and I say that about storytellers. It's like there is so much power in this personal story. I talk about that with my kids all the time. Like it's like lean in to the weird, the specificity of who you are, and find friends who love that about you. And are like, no, don't try to conform. I mean, conformity is like your enemy. Like, don't do it.
Spend your whole life trying to get back.
You do. You try to be like, I used to have this cool, I used to feel better about that, or I used to do that, and it's so precious, like that specificity of yourself. There's something about this movie that I love, and it comes from the friendships, it comes from the generations of women who you kind of see are so quirky and different one to the next, but you like are so fascinated into watching them, and that they're all celebrated in this film. None of them are demonized. That's the gift, I hope.
Thank y'all so much for talking to me about coming of age stories and how important representation is. And I know that we can continue this conversation on, and we will through Turning Red.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was so fun to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Be sure to watch Turning Red, now streaming on Disney+.
And make sure you subscribe to the Disney Plus YouTube channel for future conversations. Happy Women's History Month, and we'll see you next time.